Have you ever been so excited about something that you just could not wait to share it with other people? I am so excited about what I'm going to share with you today. And as you see from the title, I just want to talk to you about God's way of getting rich. And it's very clear. There are so many examples, and over again, God shows us how people have gone from a state of poverty or lack to a state of wealth and abundance and riches. So, first of all, I was not even looking for this. So, this is a secret that God just gave me extra because what I was looking for was peace. I had been in a toxic relationship for a very long time, and I was very just fearful about so many things, like so much anxiety, like always having these anxiety attacks and all this other kind of stuff. So, I was like, okay, anxiety is great fear. Panic is great fear. That's what it's called, panic attacks. I was having panic attacks. So, panic means great fear. So, my thought pattern was, okay, I have this panic, but if I can go from panic and fear to faith, then I could get rid of these attacks that I'm having. So I decided that I wanted to read the Bible because I know that the Bible says that faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. So I decided, okay, let me just go ahead and read this Bible from Genesis to Revelation, from cover to cover, because I need all the faith that I can get, because I did not want to deal with those attacks anymore. So what I did was I actually read the Bible and I read it out loud because it says faith comes by hearing, not just reading it. So I read it out loud from Genesis to Revelation. And actually I did this twice, two different occasions. I did it two times on two different occasions. And I did gain a great sense of faith from doing that. But then I started thinking about how so many people in the Bible were just blessed, and not just people who feared God or not just people who love God. Because when you think about the Bible, there's all kinds of people in there, like people who are God fearing, people who love God, the Jews, all kinds of people, even talk about Italian people and Roman people, like all kinds of people, African people. So I realized, first of all, you don't have to be a person of God to be rich. And we can see that in our world. Like there's a lot of people who don't follow God, don't fear God, who are not Christians, who are not saved, yet they are rich. So there has to be some law that makes a person or helps them to find, or wealth to find them, that's not dependent on their, I guess, Christian standing. Or, back then, and anyway, let's just leave it at that. So I started thinking about it more and more. And I just have a couple examples to share with you. So let me just get to the point. This is what all these people have in common. So we had a lot of people who were rich in the Bible. We're talking about people who, like Pharaoh, he was rich. Like the kings, obviously, they're rich. But also people who became rich, like Esther, Daniel. Who else? Esther, Daniel, like Nehemiah, Gideon, one of my favorites. And so some of these people started with nothing. They didn't have anything, but they became rich. This is the thing that they all have in common, whether they were born rich or they became rich. Each and every one of them had a very high responsibility to help people. And they helped those people. So when you think about even Pharaoh, he is the king, right? I mean, when we think about kings, sometimes we think like, oh, a king is just a person who was born into riches, into the lap of luxury. They're, given everything they want, treated well, pampered, all these things. But back then, yes, that was true. And you had to have great respect and great honor for the king, or else your head could be easily cut off without a problem, without an issue. But one of the king's jobs was to rule the people. And people would come to the king to get decisions made, like for justice. So he had a job to do. He had a job to protect the people, make sure that there were no enemies that would come in and overtake the people and abuse the people. He had a job to serve the people. He wasn't just there just because, you know, he was happened to be born into the right bloodline to be treated, you know, well. He had to take care of the people whom he ruled. And that was just the case, especially back then. However, there are people who are not born rich. And they too, if they wanted to become rich or if they became rich, they had to do the same thing. They had to somehow help people, and then the riches came. So let's think about Gideon. And I don't even know if you know who Gideon is, but Gideon, his story is found in the book of Judges. I think it's Judges chapter 6 or 7. I'll put it on the screen. I don't have my notes with me. But he was a man who even said that he was poor, that he was the least of his family. He said that to God when God came to him. Because the angel came to Gideon and called him a mighty man of valor, right? But he said, I am the least of my people. That's what he said. He said that he was the least of his people. And he didn't have much. He was trying to just get enough wheat and hide it from the Philistines or whoever it was. I can't remember what. He was trying to hide it from the enemy so that he could have food to eat for him and his family. He didn't have had any food to eat. And God was calling him a mighty man of valor. And so God said, okay, I want you to, you know, do these things, and you're going to lead your people out of this bondage. So he's like, okay, but, you know, first show me some signs and that type of thing on, you know, to show me that I really am the person that is good for this job. So what he ended up doing was, let me see. He went ahead and he did that. Let me see. I'm getting confused because there's somebody across the street. But anyway, so he ended up going ahead and saying that, all right, I will do it. I will help save these people. Now, the people came against him because he cut down the groves for the false gods. He also, what else did he do? He cut down the grove and some other things. I forgot what else he did. But anyway, he ended up like not being the people's favorite. And the people were like upset with him. But still in all, because he was following the plan of God and going along with what God asked him to do, God gave him favor with a group of people who decided to follow him into battle to go against the enemy, because they were tired of running from the enemy, tired of the enemy getting their stuff. They weren't able to eat. They weren't even able to breathe without the enemy like up on them down their necks. So Gideon said, all right, God, I will help the people get delivered. You know, so God gave him a group of people to follow him. And then God cut those people down to 300 people. So he had to come up against all of these, like maybe like, I don't know if it was like hundreds of thousands, but it said when Gideon looked out and he saw the enemy, he said they could not even be numbered. Like they were as the number of sand by the sea. Like that's how large this group looked to him. So he didn't feel like he could even overcome them. But anyway, he's like, okay, I'm going to do whatever you told me to do. And don't you know that because he listened to God, he ended up helping the people and saving the people. And all the enemies, all of them, they end up killing themselves. Like he did not even have to use any type of weapon or anything like that. None of him or the 300 people that were following him. So he ended up following God. And as a result, he was given like all of this gold. He was given a place to stay. Like people treated him almost like a king, even though they kind of wanted to make him king. But he was like, no, I'm not going to be your king. God is your king. Just give me this gold, which they gave him. Like he asked like for, I think, a talent of gold from everyone, which is a whole bunch of money. Give me this gold. And then he had all these wives. He had all these kids. Like how he started was not how he ended. But what happened in between was he helped a whole bunch of people. So let's go ahead. Let's move to Esther, right? Because everybody pretty much knows the story of Esther, mostly because of her 3-day fast. And people do the Esther fast, no water, no food for 3 days. So the thing with her is the same. She was an orphan. She didn't have no mother, no father. She was being raised by her cousin, Mordecai. And there was a situation where the king of Persia decided that he did not want to have the queen, who was the queen at the time, be the queen anymore. He wanted a new queen because the queen he had was not listening. She was being disrespectful. So he said, I'm going to find me a fine virgin and make her queen instead of you. So he got rid of that one. He looked and chose the ones that he liked. And Esther is the one who became the queen, right? So she's the queen. She's Jewish. He didn't know that. But she was the one who had the favor, and she became the queen. Now, what ended up happening was, during that time, her cousin was bumping heads with one of the important people in the kingdom. So he was like the king's like right-hand man. And Mordecai, Esther's cousin, was like bumping head with this guy named Haman, who was, like I said before. So Haman and Mordecai were not getting along. So Haman went to the king and said, you know, we need to get rid of these Jews, right? He wanted to get rid of the Jews. And the king was like, okay. He went along with it. So Mordecai, Esther's cousin, goes to her, because she's the queen, and said, you know, you need to do something about this. We are going to be extinguished if there's nothing done. So she's a little bit hesitant about it. And he says, hey, maybe this is the reason why you're here. You're here for such a time as this. And she's like, you know, if I go into the king and ask him a question and I have not been summoned, I could be killed. He's like, hey, you got to make a choice about what you're going to do. So what ended up happening was she decided that she was going to go ahead and fast for 3 days. She said, okay, I'm going to fast for 3 days. I'm going to also have all my ladies in waiting fast for 3 days. And you send out the word, everybody fast for 3 days. No food and no water. And I'm going to go into the king. If I perish, I perish. So she made a decision. Life or death, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to go in. I'm going to try to help my people. She became the person who had the opportunity to save the people because she was close to the king. So she fasted for the 3 days. She put on her clothes and she went before the king, not knowing what was going to happen. And lo and behold, the king welcomed her presence. And he said to her, what is it that you desire? I will give you anything, even up to 1/2 of the kingdom. So let me tell you something. Just because you're the queen, you might have access to riches and things like that, especially back then. But that does not mean that you're getting half. Like the way things worked back then was not like they work today. Like you marry somebody, you get half of what they get. It didn't work like that. Like back then, like you're the queen. That means you're like just the best woman. You're the number one woman among like many other women that this king might have. You understand what I'm saying? Like you're chosen, you're number one. Like you're like the one who has that title. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have other wives or whatever. But anyway, and that doesn't mean that you have all the riches that he has. But he was willing to offer her, after that sacrifice of 3 days of not eating and not drinking anything and getting everybody else to do the same, he was willing to give her up to half of his kingdom, which was great, like the greatest kingdom that there was at that time. So give her great, great riches. And she's like, wait a minute. I don't want that. But she had the opportunity to have it. But anyway, she ended up being able to speak to him and let him know what she desired, which was for her people to be saved. And she, you know, just explained to him that Haman had tricked him into making this decree where he was going to kill the Jews and extinguish them. And she was a Jew. So she was like, hey, if they get killed, I'm going to get killed too, because I'm a part of those people. And he was like, no. It ain't going to go down like that. But still in all, what I'm trying to say is her willingness to sacrifice her life and to go through 3 days without food or water or drink or anything to save other people, because she could have just like pretended or said like, well, I am not Jewish and I ain't got nothing to do with that, I'm just a queen. No, she put her own life on the line for people, to help other people. And she was even offered half of the kingdom. It was a whole bunch of money. And even after that, he was like, the king was so like open to her, showed her so much favor, because prior to that, she said, I have not even seen the king in 30 days. Like, he's not even summoned me to come. It's almost like he didn't want to have anything to do with her. But after that, it was like he wanted to be with her all the time. He was always with her, always around her, you know, just trying to just like please her. Okay, 1 second. So he was always trying to please her. And yeah, hold on 1 second, guys. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So enough about Esther. Let's just move on to the final one. So I remember, Joseph, yes, he was the third example of how you can become rich by helping others. Now, Joseph, he already like kind of had money because he was Isaac's son. Jacob's son. He was Jacob's son. So they were not like poor or anything like that. They had money, but I mean, they were not like kings or anything like that. But they ain't need like no assistance or nothing like that from anybody. But anyway, Joseph, you know his story, most people, that he was betrayed by his brothers because he was well liked by his dad. He was his dad's favorite son. You know how that goes. So all the brothers were jealous of him. They basically hated him. They wanted to kill him. However, they decided instead of killing him to sell him into slavery in Egypt. So wherever Joseph went, though, he always had a spirit of excellence and he always did very well. He was in Potiphar's house and he did well there. He ended up being accused of something that he didn't do, and he went to the pit, which is basically like prison in modern day times. So he went to prison, and even there he like ran the prison. Like the prison guard was like, "Oh, you're doing a great job. Like I can trust you. You could just run stuff down here." So, but he had a gift of dreaming and being able to interpret people's dreams given by God. So he ended up interpreting two people's dreams, and what he interpreted about those dreams came to pass. It happened. The people forgot. Well, let me say not the people. The person, one of the persons whose dream he interpreted forgot about him, because he promised that when he got out of that situation that he would tell somebody about Joseph so that he could also be freed from the prison. So 2 years went by. This man who promised to tell people about Joseph did not make good on his promise. However, Pharaoh of Egypt, where Joseph was sold into slavery, so he's a slave, so slaves don't have anything, they don't own anything, they're not rich, they're just regular old people being servants of other people or whatever. Pharaoh has a dream that no one can figure out. And so the person who Joseph helped remembered Joseph 2 years later and said, "Oh, King, I know of somebody who's in prison who is able to interpret dreams. He did it for me, and everything he said that was going to come to pass came to pass." So the king summons Joseph out of prison, and he tells him his dream, and Joseph interprets it, even gives the king advice like as to what to do in the future. He advises him, and the king makes Joseph second in command. Now, how did Joseph help anybody? Well, he was always helping. Like he helped, like I said, Potiphar. He always did a good job. He had a spirit of excellence. He helped the prison guard. Like he didn't have to do that. Like he's not getting paid for these things. He's a slave, but he's still doing like his very best. And the people who he was working for basically for free noticed this, and they would give him positions at the very top. So now, when Joseph went before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he was still a prisoner. He didn't have anything. But he told Pharaoh what his dream meant, again, gave him advice, and he became second in command. He got like a ring on his finger, like all these different things that Joseph ended up receiving because he was a person who helped others. Because he was trying to advise Pharaoh of what to do so that people's lives would be saved. What Pharaoh's dream meant, let me just quickly tell you that, just to put things into context. His dream meant that there were going to be 7 years of plenty, like a whole lot of food was going to be grown, everything was going to go well, but then there were going to be seven years of great famine, of what they called, I think, dearth back then. They called it dearth, where nothing would grow. But Joseph was saying, to save lives, what you need to do is to make sure that you save this food, like take a little bit every year from the years of plenty, so that in the years where there's leanness, where there's not a lot, where there's lack, you will have something to eat. Your people will have something to eat. So he was trying to save lives even in that, in advising him the right thing to do. Not just for Pharaoh, not just for the kingdom, but for everybody. And he ended up, because of the plan that he gave to Pharaoh, when everything was said and done, when those good years of plenty, when everything was growing well and everything was going well, were over, and then they started to go into those years where there was a famine, they had so much, not even just to feed Egypt, but there were people coming from all over the world to come and get food from Egypt because of Joseph's advice and because of his desire to help others. And, you know, it was just so great how his whole story turned around. What ended up happening was his father, who thought he was dead for like 17 years, was able to reunite with him. He forgave his brothers who sold them into slavery. He was even able to help his brother, to feed his brothers. He gave his youngest brother, Benjamin, 5 changes of clothing, and I believe it was 300 pieces of silver, which in today's time, when I calculated it, it ended up being like 5 years' wages or something like that. So imagine he just gave that to him. 5 years' wages that was nothing compared to the riches that he had access to, nothing compared to the riches that he had. That was just a gift that he was giving to his brother. 5 years' wage, like most people make, let's say on average, let's say $50,000 a year. Most people don't even make that much, but let's say $50,000 a year. So he gave him like basically $250,000 just for his brother. And then his father, he sent like 20 donkeys full with all kinds of stuff down to where his father was living, to bring him to Egypt, to bring his dad to Egypt, to live with him, so that they can live in abundance and not live in lack like the rest of the world was living. Like, this is what happens when you have a heart to serve and to help others. And I'm just talking about situations where people helped others on a massive scale. But the same thing works even if you're helping someone on a small scale. You can go to work and get paid. You're helping your boss. You're helping your family. You know, but what would happen if you just helped a little more? Like if you helped your boss a little more, if you came in a few minutes early, even if you're not getting paid, if you really did your job the best that you could, how would that change your life? And this is the thing. We should do our jobs well no matter what, because the Bible tells us that whatever we find our hands to do, whatever our hands find to do, we should do it with all of our might, whether people are looking or not, because they are not the ones who are going to reward us. It is God who sees our efforts, sees our desire to help people, sees our desire to do the best and have an excellent spirit. He sees that, and he will bring the reward. Even if you are a person who stays at home with your kids, God will see your efforts with your children, raising them the best way you can, making sure that they have a routine, you know, their teeth are brushed well, they're well fed, they're happy, you're teaching them whatever it is you can, their ABCs, their colors, whatever it is. God will see that, and he will make a way for you to be prosperous. You can maybe even, I don't know, create some type of routine or that people might like and use for their kids, and they will buy it. Or people might want to have some type of conferences with you, or what do they call those things when people like get with other people, like you coaching somebody or something like that. Teaching moms how to be good moms, like establishing routines, doing like the best you can. People will notice what you're doing because God will shine that light on you, and your income is going to increase. I don't care what anybody says. Like, it works every time. Time after time after time, it will work. So just think today, like, what can you do just a little bit better today? And then tomorrow, do it a little bit better. a little bit better, even maybe in 30 days, a little bit better. What can you do to improve someone else's life sacrificially? You know, God, there's nothing that you do that God was not going to repay you for. Because the Bible says that that we are not to be deceived. It says, be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. And that goes both directions. Don't think that God does not see your efforts and how you help people. You have a heart for people. If you volunteer, God will repay you. Don't ever think that when you're volunteering that you're not getting paid. The people that you're volunteering for, they might not pay you, but God will make good on that return. He will repay you. He will. So the bottom line is, if you want riches, if you want wealth, you have to help other people. Now, let's talk about people who are evil, right? But they're rich. Like, if we're talking about like slave owners and things like that, even with that, they are in some way helping somebody else. Because if you have a slave, they need a place to stay. Even if it's not the best place, they need a place to stay. They need food to eat. Even if it's not the best food, they're still feeding these people, right? They still need food, shelter, clothing. Even if it's not the best clothing, they're still clothing them. You understand what I'm saying to you? But the thing about it is that the level that you will help others, God will make more abound toward you. You can get rich and get money, even in ways that are not honorable, because people want things and you are fulfilling somebody's wants. But let me tell you something, that type of richness, that type of, I guess, money, because you're just getting money, but you're really not getting wealth, you're not getting rich, because it's not going to stay with you. And you're always going to be looking over your shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Always. There's no peace in that type of thing. Can you get money? Yeah. Can you have nice things doing evil? Yeah, you can. But it will not stay, it will not last. And like I said before, be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So if you're hurting other people, you best believe that that's going to come back on you. So, you want to be rich? Help somebody. Help somebody. No matter how small it is, help somebody. And God will make your dreams come true. I'm seeing it even in my life. Just trying to do a little more. Trying to do things a little bit better. Trying to help just my family. Whatever job I do my best. And I'm seeing God open up doors that I couldn't open for myself. So I just pray this video bless you. I hope that you got something out of it. I'm going to make a subsequent video to this because I also want to tell you about how people or why people choose to spend their time and their money with some people and not with others. It's very simple. It's very easy. God just showed me, you know, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's just one thing that people are looking for, and they will spend their money on you, and they'll spend their time with you because they see you as a person who's worthy of that. But that's another video for another time. I hope you come back for that. Thank you so much for joining me. I pray that you have a blessed day. I pray that your family as well. I pray that everything is well with you and that the Lord will continue to add to you greatly. In Jesus' name. God bless you, everybody. Bye.